On this Wednesday night, 5 former World Junior players reportedly told to surrender to police. The first potential charges in a high-profile sex assault case that dates back to 2018. Russia accuses Ukraine of killing its own, shooting down a plane carrying Ukrainian POWs. Where's the evidence? The possible consequences of controlling the number of international students in Canada, what it could mean for their future and for schools. And palatial plans.
I just said, mine.
The knight taking the reins of this Nova Scotia castle.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There is news tonight about allegations of sexual assault involving former junior hockey players. The Globe and Mail newspaper is reporting 5 former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey team have been told to surrender to police in London, Ontario. The newspaper says it's related to allegations of a group sexual assault in a hotel room in London in 2018. The case was closed without charges in 2019, but was later reopened. Mackenzie Gray is following this story for us tonight. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Dawn, it appears there will soon be new revelations on one of the most high-profile sexual assault investigations in Canadian history.
The Globe and Mail is reporting 5 players from the 2018 Canadian World Junior team have been told to surrender to police in London, Ontario to face sexual assault charges, according to 2 sources. Global News has not been able to independently verify that information, but 5 players who were on that team have now taken leaves of absence from their current hockey teams. There's no confirmation that the leaves are related to the Globe report, but they do include Philadelphia star goalie Carter Hart, whose lawyer previously told Global News his client had not engaged in any wrongdoing in the alleged group sexual assault.
We are aware of this morning's press reports on the various very serious matter. We will respond appropriately when the outcomes of the investigations are made public.
Cal Foote and Michael McLeod of the New Jersey Devils both took an indefinite leave of absence on Wednesday. Foote, who won the Stanley Cup in 2021 with Tampa Bay, denied being involved in the sexual assault through his agent in 2022. Former Ottawa Senator Alex Formenton left his team in the Swiss League today, while Calgary Flames forward Dylan Dubé did the same on Sunday, when the team announced he was leaving to attend to his mental health. Global News reached out to multiple parties involved, including representatives for all 5 players, the NHL Players Association, and the lawyers representing the alleged victims, and received no responses by deadline. The London Police Service says they have no information to share at this time, but said they anticipate holding a press conference on February 5th to discuss the matter. The Ontario Attorney General's office told Global News it has no files for any of the 5 players at this time. News of the alleged assault first broke in May 2022, when TSN first reported Hockey Canada had settled a civil lawsuit with the complainant from funds paid in part by youth hockey fees. Those revelations led London police to reopen their investigation, Hockey Canada's entire board and leadership team to quit, and the NHL to start their own investigation.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
It also sparked numerous parliamentary hearings where safe sport advocates like Kim Shore pushed for more accountability from Canadian sport organizations.
I feel really happy that finally sport is possibly being held to account. Sport has long enjoyed this immunity from criticism, from justice, from the law, and I think this is a step in the right direction.
The NHL has not commented on the report from the Globe and Mail, but did have something to say just after the story was published about the league expanding, Donna, welcoming a new bid for a team in Salt Lake City.
All right, Mackenzie in Ottawa, thanks. It is now confirmed 6 people died in that plane crash near Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories. It went down shortly after takeoff near the Alberta border. The tragedy has hit the community hard. The Premier says those killed were neighbours, colleagues, friends, and loved ones. Eric Sorensen looks at what we know about the crash.
The aircraft was a Jetstream commuter plane operated by Northwestern Air Lease, carrying 5 passengers and 2 crew members. Only 1 passenger survived the impact and was taken to the Fort Smith Health Centre, then airlifted to hospital in Yellowknife. The passengers were all en route to work at the Diavik Diamond Mine. The coroner for the Northwest Territory says next of kin have been notified by the RCMP, adding that it's working with local resources to access the site and begin the recovery process. The Air Force, RCMP, and Canadian Rangers were all involved in the search and rescue. Local restaurant owner Anna Kikowak says it's like a bad dream.
But when tragedy hits your heart, it's hard to describe. Like mass casualties. Like, that just doesn't happen in Fort Smith. Like, I've never experienced that before.
The company that owns Diavik, Rio Tinto, and its workers have been shaken. The chief executive stating, "We are feeling numb with the devastating news that we've lost dear friends and colleagues. We will be working closely with the authorities to support their efforts to understand the full facts of what happened." The only transportation over vast stretches of northern Canada is by air. This flight was en route from Fort Smith to the Diavik diamond mine operation northeast of Yellowknife, a 500-kilometer flight. The plane took off from the airport on the western side of Fort Smith to cross the Slave River. It's believed the aircraft ran into trouble almost immediately and crashed only a few hundred meters away. The Diavik diamond mine has been operating in the Northwest Territories for more than 20 years. For many of its some 1,200 employees, it is a fly-in, fly-out operation. Workers take regular flights every month. The mayor and town council of Fort Smith issued a statement offering support and prayers and our condolences to all the families, friends, and the community. These people are treasured members of our community. It is devastating news for Northerners who rely every day on air travel as they look now to the Transportation Safety Board of Canada as it begins its investigation into what happened. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Italian media is reporting 2 of the 3 people killed in that BC heliskiing crash on Monday came from well-known families. 29-year-old Heiner Jr. Oberach was the son of the founder of an Italian sporting goods giant. 35-year-old Andreas Widman's family owns the cycling company Tex Market. The 3rd victim hasn't been identified. 4 others were injured in the helicopter crash, including Emilio Zirach. His brother tells Global News when he was found, he was conscious, but he has a broken hip, legs, and ribs. Russia is accusing Ukraine of shooting down a military transport plane, which it claims was carrying 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war. That plane went down in a snowy rural area near the Ukraine border. Ukraine's military says it has no reliable information about who was on board and stopped short of acknowledging it had shot down the plane, though Ukraine's intelligence did accuse Russia of deliberately jeopardizing the lives of prisoners of war. Crystal Gamansing reports.
A terrorist act. That's how Russia's foreign minister described an incident in the Belgorod region near the border with Ukraine. This debris, Russia claims, is what's left of a military transport plane it says was shot down by Ukraine Wednesday morning. Russia says all 74 passengers were killed, including 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war due to be exchanged. The Ukrainian leadership knew perfectly well about the upcoming exchange. They were informed about how the prisoners would be transported, but the Il-76 aircraft was shot down, says this State Duma official and retired general. Video from the village closest to the crash site shows a plane falling from the sky and an explosion. Ukraine has not denied shooting it down, but in a statement says there was no information of the need to ensure the safety of the airspace because of POWs being transported as they have been in the past. In his nightly address, Volodymyr Zelensky said it is necessary to establish all clear facts and called for an international investigation. This assistant professor of politics and international relations says Russia's president and information Russia disseminates should be viewed with a high degree of suspicion.
He uses misinformation in order to influence public opinion in the West and in Ukraine to try to get his way.
It is a critical time for Ukraine as attention and funding is waning while Russian strikes continue.
Ukraine needs to be able to stay in the war, needs to be able to get Western weapons and ammunitions to continue on in the fight.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for an emergency session of the UN Security Council for Ukraine to explain what happened. That session will be held Thursday. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
The head of the British military said today the Western world should prepare for war with Russia, saying it could be on the scale of the great conflicts of the 20th century. In a speech in London, General Sir Patrick Sanders said the Russian invasion of Ukraine is a sign of things to come. Russia's war on Ukraine, he says, is about defeating our system and way of life politically, psychologically, and symbolically, and how we respond as the pre-war generation will reverberate through history. Ukrainian bravery, he said, is buying time for now. He's calling on the British Army to be nearly doubled in size and for citizens to be trained so they can be mobilized in the event of a war. In response to his speech, the British government insisted today military conscription is not on the table. In the U.S., the United Auto Workers Union has endorsed President Joe Biden for re-election. Biden has billed himself the most labor-friendly leader in U.S. history and hopes to maintain support among blue-collar voters in swing states. Meanwhile, Republican Nikki Haley is pressing on with her presidential campaign despite losing to former President Donald Trump in the New Hampshire primary yesterday. The result was closer than expected, and as Jackson Prosco reports, she's trying to convince voters she's the only Republican who can beat Joe Biden.
Thank you. Whoa!
For a man who won a resounding victory, Donald Trump sounded a lot like someone who'd lost.
And just a little note to Nikki, she's not going to win. She's not going to win.
Though he beat Nikki Haley, it was a much closer race than expected, turning Trump's pre-vote confidence
Let her do whatever she wants. It doesn't matter.
into unhinged anger.
Let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night.
I have never seen a winning candidate give a speech like that after the election. But for somebody who is essentially presenting himself as a president in exile who wants to return to the White House, these aren't necessarily great numbers.
Seeing victory in defeat, Nikki Haley will stay a contender.
This race is far from over. There are dozens of states left to go.
Her long-term odds against Trump are still slim. Next up, Haley's home state of South Carolina, where Trump has already locked up endorsements.
I just love you.
No, that's...
Though Trump still faces serious criminal and civil trials in the courts, few doubt Republicans will eventually pick him again. Americans may well do the same in November's election. Just like Republicans, Democrats are banking on Donald Trump locking up the nomination soon. In fact, President Joe Biden is already pivoting to focus on November's expected matchup against Trump after walking away with more than 50% of the vote here in New Hampshire. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Manchester.
Drug maker Johnson & Johnson has been ordered to pay Washington state nearly $150 million over its role in the opioid crisis. More than 4 years ago, the state sued Johnson & Johnson for fueling addictions. Washington's attorney general claimed the company deceived doctors and the public about the effectiveness of opioids for chronic pain and the risk of addiction. And British Columbia has reached another devastating milestone in the toxic drug crisis. The province's coroner's service says there were more than 2,500 suspected illicit drug deaths in 2023, the highest annual toll ever recorded. The chief coroner says the surging number of deaths are being driven by fentanyl, a powerful opioid. Close to 14,000 people in BC have died as a result of toxic drugs since the province declared a public health emergency in April of 2016. A deadly explosion caught on camera. Coming up, what ignited this blast in Mongolia? The governor of the Bank of Canada says the key interest rate will remain steady at 5% for now.
Inflation is still too high, and underlying inflationary pressures persist. We need to give these higher interest rates time to do their work.
The hold at 5% was widely predicted. It's the fourth time in a row the central bank kept its benchmark rate unchanged. Tiff Macklem hinted there could be cuts coming, but wouldn't predict when. Universities and colleges in Canada are increasingly reliant on international students who often pay up to 5 times more in tuition than domestic students. Now that the federal government is putting a cap on foreign students, the financial implications are worrying. The most up-to-date stats show Canada took in nearly 808,000 international students in 2022, a 31% increase from 2021. About 80% of them went to schools in BC, Quebec, and Ontario. Ontario getting the bulk of them. Colleges and universities say reducing those numbers will mean a big hit to their bottom line. And as Mike Drolet reports, the stress is being transferred to students.
When we met Indian student Jitesh Kumar Vaswani, his singular focus on school was such that he had yet to buy furniture.
Only reason why I want an apartment as a student is that I just want to sleep.
Money is also an issue. International students like Vaswani pay roughly 5 times regular tuition rates, which has been critical for many Canadian schools facing budget shortfalls. But over the past few years, foreign student numbers have grown so quickly, they now outnumber Canadians at 10 of Ontario's 24 publicly funded colleges.
Conestoga and Centennial College, 2 colleges in southern Ontario, combined over that 16-month period brought in more international students and had more student visas issued than Canada's 15 research universities combined.
Do you feel like you're actually in Canada at school?
I would say no.
More than any other school in Canada, Conestoga has benefited from recruiting internationally. 30,000 or 71% of its 42,000 students come from overseas, leading to a budget surplus last year of $106 million. Putting a cap on new students coming to this country would essentially turn off that profit pipeline. In an email, a Conestoga spokesperson said, "We need to ensure we protect Ontario's reputation as a leading destination for international students. And if the rules change, it's essential we get this right." That's true for a number of reasons. The housing market in Kitchener, which has seen low vacancy rates and increasingly high rents, has become a serious problem. And the students themselves worry they're being made into scapegoats. Vaswani had expected a work permit when he graduates this spring. It's unclear under the new rules if that will still happen.
That's what I have understood since the beginning when I come here. It's just up to you.
Like so many other new Canadians, all he wants is an opportunity, but it might be out of his control. Mike Drolet, Global News, Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario.
There's some game-changing news for Canada's top Paralympic athletes. Medal winners will now receive financial rewards just like their Olympic counterparts. The Canadian Paralympic Committee says the new performance recognition program will start this summer at the Paris Games. Athletes who win gold will get $20,000. Silver medal winners will receive $15,000, and $10,000 will go to those who win bronze. That's equal to the amount Olympic athletes receive for the same achievements. Criminal charges have now been laid after that shooting inside Edmonton City Hall yesterday while City Council was meeting. The gunfire led to a lockdown of City Hall. Police say the gunman opened fire randomly and set off a Molotov cocktail. No one was injured. The 28-year-old now faces 7 firearms charges and arson charges. His bail hearing is scheduled for tomorrow. Taking to the streets still ahead why thousands in Argentina have walked off the job. This was the scene in Mongolia's capital after a truck carrying 60 tons of liquefied natural gas crashed and exploded. 6 people were injured, 6 people were killed, 14 others injured. And the truck appears to have crashed into a small car that caused 2 explosions, the second of which killed 3 firefighters who responded to the scene. The blaze spread to several buildings, including an apartment, and triggered the evacuation of nearby homes. Thousands of workers in Argentina gathered outside the national legislature to protest big economic and labor reforms that would slash public spending. The strike was organized by the country's largest union and affected service at airports, banks, hospitals, and other public services. Argentina is dealing with triple-digit inflation and massive debt. Right-leaning President Javier Milei was elected last fall on a campaign of harsh austerity measures. Her home is her castle. Next, an Ontario woman's fairy tale retirement in Nova Scotia. An Ontario woman has invested a cool $1 million into some real estate in Nova Scotia and plans to make it her retirement project. It is a big one. The place is a castle in Cape Breton. And though it's not old or historic, its new owner has big plans for its future. Heidi Petrachuk explains.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
In movies like The Princess Bride, castles are places for swashbuckling sword fights. And in the real world, they're places of royal pomp and circumstance. But this castle in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, it seems, is the perfect place for one Ontario woman's retirement.
My niece Maggie, she had sent me the link to the castle. And when I opened it up, I just said, mine, just like that. I just knew it. That was the right thing to do.
I remember the text was, we need that castle.
Nearly 10,000 square feet with 10 bedrooms and 18 bathrooms. The castle sits on 163 acres, complete with babbling brook, panoramic views, and private lake access. Built in 1992 as another Ontario retiree's anniversary gift for his wife. Castle Moffat later became a 5-star bed and breakfast and was sold in 2018 to the Gracie siblings. They listed Castle Gracie in November, and the aptly named Elaine Knight stepped up with her $1 million offer.
It was Castle Moffat, Castle Gracie, and then I'm just going with Castle Knight, but luckily I'm a Knight.
Before she moves in, though, there is work to do. The renovation cost undisclosed. And she has big plans to share the results with visitors.
The bulk of it in the summertime is going to be obviously Airbnb. And then maybe 1 or 2 weddings a month.
Just using the brook as energy and solar energy. So those ideas are being thrown around.
The hope to be ready for occupancy this summer, making Knight's new home truly her castle. Heidi Petrachuk, Global News, Halifax.
A lot of work, and that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is this snowman in Pointe Claire, Quebec. He could be the king of snowmen. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.